All right. Well, I'm back, and unfortunately, you're going to have to hear that about 7, 8 more times today. So, without further ado, I'll introduce myself without having to read my own cue card. I'm Joe Pohrer. I'm one of the owners of Pohrer Building Company. I'm 5th generation, family-owned business. We've been around for, it's now 169 years. Next year, it'll be 170. And a lot of people say, you know, Joe, you don't look that bad for 169 years old. I'm like, no, I do not. So, without further ado, and without a standing ovation yet, I'm going to roll the video. Today we're going to talk about what Kevin touched on a little bit, and what really is what a lot of this seminar is about today is we're going to talk about delivery methods of construction, okay? And then we're going to go back in time to before there were construction managers, before there was design build. There was just straight hard bid work. And I think some of you out here, whether you're architects or construction managers, you know exactly what I'm talking about, where you just go low dollar bids, and then the results turn out to be bad. So let's see if I can get this to work. So a little bit about the history of my family business. My great-great-grandfather founded the company, he and his brother, back in 1856 in St. Louis, Missouri. They were originally blacksmiths working on boats on the Mississippi River, right? So somehow from that working with steel, as the spread of the country went going west, that's why the Gateway Arch is in St. Louis, right? They realized there was going to be a need for law and order because back then, well, it's kind of like if you've ever seen the movie, you know, any of the westerns where it was just shoot somebody, shoot them, all right? Well, eventually, Pohrer Building Company, because they worked with iron and steel, developed the first jail. Actually, it were Germans that he spelt it Gaeols. And what they used to do was, if you committed a crime in the city, they would put you on a wagon inside of this jail and lead you around town. Because back then, your reputation meant something. Today, it's a lot different. So back when people talk about, well, Joe, how did you get so involved in correctional work and all this stuff? Well, in my household, it was all about Pohrer Building Company, working with sheriffs, counties, and state prison workers, all right? Because we invented and made, back in the day, a lot of the products you still see today in prisons, except obviously we didn't make computers, but we did make the first sliding door device. We made the first operable windows. We made the first toilets, right? We actually made those, patented them, and then installed them. So that's where my background is from. And that's where Pohrer is from. So let me go to the next one. Okay, so that's from the history of Pohrer to today in 2025. Just real briefly, you can read it. I'm not going to look at it. But we've done over 630 different correctional facilities, whether it's juvenile, county, state, or courthouses. And obviously today, if the people who were here yesterday, you got to take the tour of the largest prison being built in the country. So you can see where we've kind of evolved to, and I know where there's some architects here that are been around for a long time. Dave Scholl. All right, and so we go back to when, a 100-bed county jail was a big job, right? Well, those are almost like side jobs anymore. However, it doesn't matter if you're building a $1.2 billion state prison, or if you got to add on 20 cells at your existing jail. It still all comes down to the same process. You got to go with quality and don't go low bid. So we're going to go from there to this. All right? Come on. All right. So as I said before, if you go back in the history of corrections, now I've never built a hospital, never built a school, so I cannot tell you how the bid work goes in those things. But in corrections, we started off back in the 1860s, all right? It was just straight bid, straight hard dollar bid. County hires an architect then gets the job, then they put the job out to bid from their set of drawings, and 10 general contractors bid the job. And what do? We take the low number. Well, what did he have in his bid? We don't know. He's low. Does he have any good subcontractors? Nope, he's low. My question then comes back to, well, let's say you were going to build your house, you and your wife, you're going to build your dream house, right? So you go out and interview 3 quality builders. But a guy comes along and says, hey, you know what? not a quality builder, but I built a really nice trailer park. And you're like, hey, guy's half the price. And your wife says, but darling, he builds trailer parks. But then you take the number because it was half the price. And then 2 years later, when your job's still not done, and your house falls down, and your wife leaves you, you say to yourself, maybe I should have gone through a qualification process. Now, that's maybe extrapolating a little bit out how we should do the process, but it gets the point home, right? You will get exactly what you pay for. And if it's too good to be true, it's too good to be true, all right? So I'm going to eventually get to a point here, people, all right? All right, so talking about going back in the day, there are some construction management firms here, general contracting guys back in the day. How many times, Tim Clark, have you done straight GC bids? Low dollar wins, right? Owner doesn't even know what was in the bid. They're just like, well, but they're $100,000 less than Adolphson Peterson, right? They award the contract, and then they find out what they didn't. And guess what happens most of the time? The low general contractor is looking at your set of drawings from the architect, the engineers, going, well, hey, you know what? There are some openings here. Why don't I just kind of skip that portion of it because it's not really clear, and then later I'll come back and charge the owner for what really should have been there. I think it's called a change order. I think county commissioners, architects, everyone knows what I'm talking about, and that's how that job. And you know what? But believe it or not, we still have jobs out there today that still go straight GC bid, right? All right, and then the next method is, all right, so then it went from straight hard bid to they hired the counties, like Kevin was talking about, they weren't hiring program managers, they were hiring a construction manager, all right? Which then changed a lot of how the delivery method was going to be. The construction manager was tasked by the owner going out, hey, you know what? Bring in some quality subcontractors. Let's interview them. Let's try to get the process moving forward on quality and reliability instead of just low price. All right? And that took place during that time frame. Then we went to construction manager at risk, which is, I think, where a lot of the people are today. Most of the construction guys out here are CMs at risk. The reason I like that, if I'm an owner, I'm like, okay, so I want to build a new 100-bed county jail. I hire a construction manager, but I put him at risk by making him put his bond up, which means he's now on the hook to deliver the product, all right? If he doesn't get it done on time, doesn't get it done on ahead of schedule, doesn't give me quality, I can always call his bond and get it finished, all right? And I think that's a great process. However, that still has some drawbacks. So, and then design build has been around for a long time. I think it started in the 1970s, 1980s. It's a delivery method that still is used today. I think the state of Illinois is kind of doing Leanne, tell me if I got this right. They're still doing design build, right? They're trying to make it a little bit more progressive, though, right? But the problem with design build is, all right, you can hire the right architect. You could hire the right construction manager. You could hire the wrong construction manager. If the construction manager decides to put his team together based on low dollar, how would you actually know that if you're the owner? Well, you're not going to know because he's not going to tell you. He's going to tell you he's got this great design build team. I can tell you right now, as an owner of Pohrer Jail, I don't think I've ever closed a design build contract because half the time we quote the job, our team bids $150 million, the low team bids $78 million. Well, you guys got beat. What did they bid on? Well, what was ever in those 49,000 pages? It's like, okay. So I'm not really a big proponent of design build, if you didn't already get that. All right. All right, so the people that are out here who've been here for a lot of years, but if you're new states that have been here to do the tour, or different counties that are going to build a new facility, or architects are maybe starting to get into corrections, all right? Pohrer Jail Building Company is what's known as a detention equipment contractor, which means, all right, so I'm not the steel cell manufacturer, I'm not Accurate Controls, I'm not Titan Door, I'm not Willoughby Locks, right? We're the detention contractor. So we buy those great products from the best manufacturers in the country, and then we put it together in a package. We then coordinate it, except, you know what, I'll give you a prime example. When you got to that facility yesterday, you probably saw my guys taking 38, 40 cells off the truck, put them in, install them in one day. That only happens one place. It happens with Pohrer Building Company and our dedicated team of manufacturers and my guys in the office and my guys in the field, all right? But it takes coordination. As an example, state of Indiana did a really smart thing. They said, hey, it's going to take us a while to get all the site work, utilities, all this stuff done. Why don't we go ahead and release Mike Smith and Steel Cell? Why don't you build the cells ahead of time? And then can you store them? Okay, well, that's a great plan, except you know what? If you're not going to pay me to build them and store them, then I'm not going to build them and store them. But the state of Indiana did, all right? And they went down and inspected them. So when the job site was ready and the Garmong, Granger, Wilhelm team said, Joe, bring the cells up. Well, actually, they didn't say Joe. They said, Jared, bring the cells up, right? We had cells coming up, like you saw yesterday. There were trucks starting to arrive at that job site at 7 a.m. yesterday. And that's how things work, all right? So as a detention equipment contractor, it's our job to coordinate all the products, get all the shop drawings done, get your hardware schedules done, get the product to the job site ahead of schedule, and then you can't finish it without installing it correctly. In other words, I could take the steel cell product and put it on your job site. If my guys don't know how to install it, is it ever really going to work? No. I mean, do you have door and lock problems if the door frames aren't set correctly? Right. It won't matter if you have a Willoughby lock or one from another company that's not as good. If the door frame and the door don't get set properly, the hardware never works, all right? So that's a little bit in a nutshell. That's what a detention equipment contractor should do for you. Now, whether you want to work with Pohrer Jail, which I'm assuming everybody in here probably does, all right? Raise your hand if you want to work with Pohrer Jail. All right, there you go. See? All right, good. You guys will get dinner tonight. The rest of you will not, all right? So before I get to where I'm going to finally get to, all right, in the 1990s, for some of us who were doing work back in the 1990s, if you look at that, that's a picture of the country, and those were the detention equipment contractors that were in business in the 1990s. What you don't see, besides most of those are the DCs there. They were large companies that either were manufacturers or contractors, did $50, $100, $200 million a year. All right. Now that's just the 1990s. Here's today. And of the firms that are up there are 3 firms, Pohrer Jail, Cornerstone, CML, that have any kind of capacity to build and run projects. Same with security electronics firms. So look at all the firms that were there in the 1990s, all right? And they were big firms. And then let's look at today, all right? There are basically, from where we see, there are basically 3 security electronics firms in this country that could do a job the size of Westville. One is Accurate Door Controls. It was the best in the country. Then you have Stanley. And there's one other firm, and that's it. But think about this. It's not just Westville at $1.4 billion. It's all the other projects. You all heard about the jobs in New York City, right? They're $5 billion, $6 billion. All the other projects going on in this country, no matter if it's your small county jail or Build Westville, it still takes a project manager, project engineer. Every job, doesn't matter how big or small, still takes a person and all that time. So if there are only these amount of firms left, and there's all this work coming, or already here, you're going to have to decide, hey, am I going to go and roll the dice on picking a construction management firm that doesn't have a team, or do I need to pick a construction management firm that's going to bring me the team, all right? So you're going to look at Security Hollow Metal, it's the same thing. Mike Smith, you worked at Habersham back in the 90s, right? Yep. Look how many hollow metal manufacturers there were. Today, there's only that many left. But once again, think about this. Every project, think about all the doors and frames you saw yesterday at one job. Now that's capacity that, you know what? The manufacturer only has a 40-hour work week. He can only make this many doors and frames. But you don't care about Westville. You care about your job in Michigan or Ohio, right? So you got to say to yourself, Well, that's great. Kevin Orm got his doors and frames. Can I get mine? All right. So that's going to get me to the same with security lock manufacturers. Today we basically have two firms left. We have Southern, Folger, R.R. Brink, which is basically the same company, and then we have Willoughby. That's all there is in the entire country. All right. All right, so we're going to go back to what I originally talked about, and you'll see it coming up next. So for the first time in 30 years that we've done this webinar, we're going to put together a panel of construction management firms that specialize in correctional facilities. They also specialize in selecting a quality team of subcontractors. Now, when I talk about that, I don't just mean that it's not just the DEC that you need to pick. It's not just the security electronics team, all right? The construction managers on the Bill Westfield team, they pick the right mechanical contractor, electrical, plumber, mason. You have to have a whole team, all right? So that when you sit down and you're looking at the set of drawings, you figure out, okay, what can we do to bring down the cost to make this job a job? On Westfield, I think we worked, what, Jared? 12 months to get it done, right? So it started off with a not-to-exceed number because the drawings weren't done, which is fine. But then you got everybody working together in collaboration. We got to get this job modularized down in cost without cutting corners on quality so that it now becomes a job. Well, if we'd have just gone with Westfield, wouldn't have been a project. It was over the budget, right, guys? Everyone knows that, right? So that's pretty much what I think qualification design assist is. And when the next panel comes up here, I want everyone in the audience to think about what they're going to say, the questions that are going to come to them. But then I want you to think as an owner, from the owner's side. Hey, so Leanne from River City. Why would I pick River City Construction Company or Granger or Garmont? Why would I pick you guys to build my new county jail? All right? Those are, before you answer the question, you got to say, hey, you know what? Can't just be about the low price, because anybody can do that. I could bid low price, all right? It's got to be about quality, performance, and then the other thing is, tell me there aren't some owners here who have built facilities before, and then all of a sudden, 5 years later, all the people have gone bankrupt. General contractors out of business, mechanical, they're all bankrupt, they're out of business, but guess what? You just paid for that building for the next 50, 60, 70 years. Now you have to pay for it again because somebody's got to come fix all the problems. There's a great county example here right in the state of Indiana, which I won't name the county, but anybody who's from Indiana knows. Right? They built a facility with an architect who'd never done correctional work, with a construction company that never built a jail. Job went way over budget, way behind schedule. Everybody went bankrupt. Guess what? 10 years later, the county had to build a whole new jail, right? Cost a lot of money, a lot of time. So that's pretty much the end of my presentation. And before I go on, I'm going to ask you if anybody has any questions, right? So I gave another perfect presentation. Is that what we're talking about? All right, well, that's it then.